Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host, joined by my blue collar badass, Matt. How are you doing, man?
Doing fantastic, Dylan. It's been a busy week here in Michigan. Lots going on in construction. Really quick, wanted to follow up on our last show. I was telling a story about our roofers and their rep who solved a huge problem for us. Our team was MTD Construction. They're a local firm, but the rep was Johns Mansville that came out and basically gave my clients a 60 mil roof for the price of a 45 because of a defect in manufacturing. So I wanted to make sure I remember to get that out there this time.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's things like that, right? Is to give the shout outs and credit where credit's due and, praise people publicly and, just like you do in your companies, and then scold people in private, not put them on blast. So we want to make sure that we're doing that same thing here, living up to that standard. Just for me as a kind of little update for everybody. So I live outside of Yosemite, for those of you that don't know, and we have there's a decent sized fire here in our kind of neck of the woods. So like on Monday, so this fire started Friday. Actually, we could see it when I was at the gun range, and they had a bigger tankers, like a DC-10 that they use for like tanker plane to drop all the chemicals. That doesn't take off from our little airport because it needs a longer than 3,500 foot runway to take off. But we saw it on Friday, and it grew to, I think right now it's at 16 or 18,000 acres. It's wow. Like 25% contained, but the smoke from it on Monday was such that like you basically should not go outside. But that's a lot of the things that we deal with in California during fire season. It's a real thing, like smoke can be very bad. And then when we like Friday, Saturday, when we were looking at it, you could see where the fire is, but there's like 4 mountain ranges between us and it. And it looks just like a mushroom cloud. So you have like this big plume of smoke coming up from these fires. So it's a real thing. Fire season is here, unfortunately. And yeah, so for all you out there and like that don't have to deal with fires, which is basically most of the
country, yeah.
It is a real thing here in California. So that's my little like what's going on outside of me traveling all the time. And oh yeah, I ran the marathon in San Francisco this last weekend, which I'll talk about probably on a like Thursday fire or something, and how that went and how
that's
I
awesome,
feel about
man. Hopefully you weren't running in the smoke. So
no, luckily that it doesn't blow that way. So this is it's in Mariposa County, so it's on like the south border of Yosemite. So like the southern piece of Yosemite's on fire right now, but they're working to get it contained. But it's cool to see like it's cool and bad to see these fire planes come in and do what they do.
For sure.
With that, guys, on to our guest for today's episode is Corina Burton, who is the co-founder and franchiser of CPR Construction Cleaning and owner of Unstoppable Media and host for the Unstoppable podcast. A mother of 4, serial entrepreneur, brand builder, marketing expert, and industry generational disruptor, which we'll get into. Has 15 years of industry experience in B2B marketing, sales, branding, and she's driven by the passion and is considered an industry leader. Her skills include expertise in contract negotiation, 7-figure sales, business development, customer relationship management, problem solving, content, and brand recognition creator. With that, Corina lives her life by believing and knowing that she is unstoppable. So with that, Corina, welcome to the Construction Corner podcast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dylan and Matt. I'm just now meeting Dylan here online, but I have been connected with Matt for quite some time. I feel like since really the beginning of when I started CPR Construction Cleaning. I feel like it's been a while, but like time passes by so fast that I don't really know. So I'm so glad that we were able to connect. Before you guys ask me any like crazy questions, I'm going to just throw something that's a little funny. Dylan, do you know I'm from Yosemite? Like my family lives there. Like I grew up and went to Yosemite High School. So where do you live?
So I live in Twain Harte. So Sonora, so I'm on Tuolumne County is where I'm at.
Okay, so I grew up in Coarsegold in Oakhurst was where my high school, where
Yeah.
and I lived there until I was 17, graduated high school, and then moved to Southern California. And my dad still lives there and runs his business. So I go back home quite often. But that was funny. Here, like my hometown, Yosemite, I'm like, what? Like that's tiny. That is a tiny place. So that's like a 1 in a zillion chance when that happens. And I'm like, wow, I don't know you, but suddenly we're connected.
Small world.
Yeah. Well, and I say Yosemite because like that's the closest landmark because nobody knows Sonora Pass or anything like that.
That's
so,
like
yeah.
when I say I'm from Coarsegold, they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I sound like I have a twang. I'm from Coarsegold, y'all. Like literally, it's like the rodeo. I grew up like in the foothills of Yosemite. So I always am like, okay, it's literally the last city before you get into Yosemite, but it's right before Fresno. You know where that is? Like it's in between that. It's funny because like nobody has any idea unless you give them kind of like those landmarks because they're so tiny.
Yeah,
So
even Corscola, like I don't know, but I know like Oakhurst, like we've been there and like Mariposa, like on that side of it. It's just like saying Groveland, for the East Gate.
yeah, that's so funny. Well, hello, hometown friend.
Oh yeah. First of all, sorry about all the rescheduling. We kind of bounced back and forth. Geez, it seems like, I don't know, for the last month or two, trying to get a time to get you on the show. So glad it finally worked out and glad we're all
Yeah, same.
sitting down on Zoom finally. So let's just jump right into it, Corina. CPR construction cleaning. You mentioned that's kind of when we connected, and I think you're right. It was probably just before the pandemic started, if I'm correct. Is that about when you started?
So we started the company end of 2019, but it was part-time. We just thought we'd give it a go, and we didn't realize how fast it was going to take off. But then when we decided to jump in with 2 feet and do it full time, it was January 2020. And then, 2 months later, we're hit with the pandemic, and then we're just like locked in. So it was a really interesting time, but because of that, it really gave me, as the person who was, in charge of all the business development, growth, sales, marketing, creating the company's brand, I had to really dive in deep in a very different way than I ever knew, because I'm really a relationship builder, like person to person, that I had to figure out how to do it organically online and reach people in a way that even through social media, you could feel that there was authenticity and there was integrity behind it. So I'm super grateful for it because, it really catapulted the business into being just a local business into, it was serving 6 additional states shortly, into, I think it was like probably year and a half, maybe 2 years. And then recently we pulled back. We took off our teams so that we allowed franchising to happen. And now, we have been franchising. I think we started officially in June of this year, and we already have 6 locked in and signed in contracts. So that's like on its way and rocking and rolling.
That is awesome. So where, you probably can't tell me exactly where, but are you spreading out the franchise nationwide, or are you sticking to the west side of the state or the west side of the country?
Yeah. So great question. We are doing it nationwide, but I'm going to put like a little asterisk that, here in this conversation on that, because, when you're franchising, you have to, in certain states that are a little bit more difficult to get your foot in the door, like California being one of them, New York being another. So there's like non-registered states, then there's like a blue register, and then there's like that red where you kind of have to go through some hoops and leaps and bounds. So I don't want to like deceive anyone, but all the states that are a non-registration state, or the ones that are in the lighter and easier, where you have a couple hoops, those are the ones that which are a significant amount. That's why, or else I would just name all the states. But they really range between west to east coast. So we do have somebody who is closing on their franchise, and they are in New Jersey. So, I mean, it's all just really exciting stuff. We're really we're about to hit we're about to be in August, but like that's in 2 months, we were able to, sell 6, and we haven't even really talked about it too much. These are just like talking to people, and then people really being like, I want to get on board, right? We're actually the very first franchise company to create a construction cleaning franchise. So, so we're the first in the market. You will not have any other, if you're to buy a cleaning type company, it's going to be a janitorial or maid-like service. We're the only specialized trade. And it's really exciting to be the first in the market to provide that kind of service as a franchise. So.
Oh, that's great. And I want to get into your explosive growth and how you did it through social, but kind of let's back up a bit. And how did you pick construction cleaning, right? It's one of those trades, those specialty trades I'm a general contractor. Mm-hmm. We rely very heavily on construction cleaning trades, but they're also one of the ones we forget about until we need them at the very last second. So where'd you decide to dip your toes into that realm?
That's funny because it's so true. I'm like, wow, when you say you break my heart, you forget about me, but I'm used to it by now. So that's a really great question, because I'm trying to think, I would say 13 of the 15 years of my experience has been in construction, right? Like in the construction, I should say commercial real estate / construction. So, I really already had like that comfortability of being in that space and being in areas that were maybe like overly saturated, and predominantly men were in my industry, and I felt always really comfortable. And that kind of goes back even more so with how I grew up, and my dad and what he does for work for his business. And growing up with my dad being someone who provided sprinkler parts for farmers in Fresno and like the Central Valley and, throughout California. And now he, over the last 17 years, he has been somebody who's been in the water conservation area where, he provides resources to help with water conservation for homes, for hospitality, any, shower heads, right? But then also he does that as well for farming, irrigation, golf courses, anything like that. So, he had me always in these areas where it was very male dominated. And so, when I started developing and going into my career, it never felt like a foreign thing to me. I always felt like, oh yeah, this is comfortable. Yes, is it a little bit more difficult? I'm not going to lie. Yeah, you have to have thick skin to do it. And you have to be really savvy. You have to be very knowledgeable, and you cannot go in blindly because you will be eaten up by people. They'll just look at you and be like, yeah, right. I don't think you really know what you're talking about. So you have to be very well versed. So, with that, I knew I still wanted to stay in the commercial real estate space. I knew I had to think of an idea because I had, I was in a partnership before and in business, and it did not work out very well. It ended pretty poorly, and I ended up pretty much left with nothing, and actually ended up left with extreme loss, extreme debt, and about to lose everything. So I walk away and I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't even know what to do. I just kind of get a job within the commercial real estate space and am doing, BD. And I'm like, what should I do? I don't even know. I'm this lost puppy. And one day I started learning about construction cleaning because I had a little stint in janitorial for property management for large, buildings and things like that, like all the high-rise buildings and medical facilities, things like that. And I hated every second of it. I hated that job so much. Like, I don't know, like there's so many people who complain that didn't matter what you did, you could bend over backwards, they would find something to complain about. And so there was no thought in my mind I would ever like try to create a janitorial company. And it was like all the stars aligned. So someone in the construction space asked if I did construction cleaning. And I was like, no, we don't. We do carpet cleaning. And I'm like, that's what we do. We specialize in carpet cleaning. This is a company that I just jumped into because I needed a paycheck to help provide for my family. And I'm a mom of 4. So I was like, no, we don't. And, but I was like, what is this construction cleaning you're talking about? So he starts talking to me more about it. And I had this huge light go on, because one of the things that I love and has created my ultimate success in any industry, it didn't matter if it was overly saturated. It didn't matter if that company was not doing well. My success rate on sales and marketing really was excelled because I always tried to solve problems. I came in as a problem solver. And so I get really excited about being able to come in and bring solutions to you. And I thought, this is it. I'm gonna create solutions. So I'm like, you tell me all of your pain points. So I write them all down. And then I go to who's my business partner now. I said to him, I was like, hey, what do you think about this? Because he had been in janitorial for about 17 years. And I'm like, I know that you had mentioned in the past, and somehow I'm like connecting the dots, what do you think about doing this? And he's like, yes, let's do it. So then I go and I do a market research. I ask people, what are your pain points? So essentially we developed CPR, construction cleaning, under the pain points, and we created that to be our strengths. And we decided we're not going to create this as a janitorial company, because that is where the issue lies. Everyone who struggles is dealing with a company who is predominantly janitorial or maid-like service, and they're just taking your job because they just randomly got it. Somehow they got it, but they don't care, because let me tell you, having a paid when paid contract, so to speak, right, with general contractors is not for the faint of heart. Contract-based services are a lot easier. The problem here is with janitorial, you have a very, very low profit margin compared to what we do. That is much more, there's a higher profit and, higher pay. We have low turnover, but there's a lot of sacrifice. There's a lot of hard work that goes behind it. And the two cleans are night and day, right? Like, you have to be extremely detailed when it comes to construction, but then there's also the safety factor behind it, because you're working alongside all the other trades. So, being able to have the confidence knowing that we were going into a space that was a non-contractual, right, where it's not month to month or year to year, it's essentially a one-off, so to speak, even though some of our contracts will last a year, because some of the projects, some of the data centers that we clean will last years and years, because that's how long they take, because they are very intricate, they're very detailed. But we have tons of jobs that are one day, they are just a final clean. So I know, long story short, but that's really how, we started the company, and we really came into it wanting to be a solution that contractors really need, and we actually care. You're not just a job that we acquired so we can get some extra money.
That's awesome.
You're on mic drop. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I mean, problem solving and being the solution provider is so key in this industry, regardless of what you're doing, whether it's building buildings or cleaning buildings or designing buildings. You have to be able to provide that solution to people, and you're spot on about most of the cleaning companies out there. And that's why I didn't mean to slight your trade when I said we forget about you guys, but it's because most of the cleaning firms that we've had are just what you said. They're janitorial cleaning services that we kind of pull into the construction world and say, hey, we need you to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them do a great job, don't get me wrong. A lot of them don't. And it's frustrating, to say the least, when we typically don't hire cleaning firms during construction for what we do, but certainly final clean. And that's, it's got to be spotless. It's got to be perfect. We're handing over the keys to a multi-million-dollar facility. We can't have, my dirty handprint on the window still.
Yeah. It's pretty remarkable how, there's like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that go into a project between obviously all of the GCs on that site and also all of the trades. And it always amazes me how, when the owner walks and it looks dirty, that place is shit. Like, it's not like, I am mad right now. I don't care that chandelier looks phenomenal there, or that all of this really amazing, like, technology is in here. It is messy. It is dirty. It is unsafe. Like, that is all they see. And so, to be able to have your guys's back, so to speak, where, they come in and they see what you have done. You've got to have a great trade partner who also wants to support you to receive that type of feedback from ownership as well. And, for us, like, we really, like, that is our number one, I was going to say goal, but it's really like in our core values is industry partnership. And that means that we're in it together. So as a team player, I know what my role is. I know it's to make you shine. It's to make you look amazing. And that's what we want. We want, your ownership to walk in and be like, wow, you guys did amazing. They're not going to be like, wow, this cleaning team is amazing. You know what I mean? They're going to think you are. And really, at the end of the day, that's what matters, because you guys will continue to remember us and want to continue to contract us. And that's really what, the name of partnership and being on the same team is all about.
So with that, like, what types of projects do you guys typically, is it final clean? Is it throughout the process? Like, what's your, typical engagements look like?
Yeah, so since we're a specialized trade in construction cleaning, we provide all three phases. Well, so we actually have now an additional phase that we like to offer everyone, especially because of COVID. So we have, of course, our rough clean, that's what we call it. So it's the initial clean. Then you have your final clean, and then you have your touch-up clean, or some people call it powder puff. That I always hear is like either, touch up or powder puff clean. But, and then the fourth one is any type of sanitization, disinfecting. That was kind of big during COVID, where, before anyone even comes into the building, we come in and do a complete disinfecting, because, we want whoever's moving into these spaces to feel comfortable and confident that hundreds of people weren't coming in and out of here, and we are the last ones, and we have disinfected it, and it's basically, brand new for them. So we do that, but we also provide, exterior cleaning, anything that's like, from, keeping the site clean and meticulous for safety, and, also for the community, because when there's wind and stuff, it blows the trash everywhere and goes into people's yards, into the streets and things like that. But, we also do, pressure washing and window cleaning, any type of like exterior, we do that as well for construction cleaning. We actually, not that I'm like trying to solicit this now, but I don't want anyone to go on and look and see, but we've just decided to extend those services out to more people, because we get this asked all the time. People really like working with us because we are such a problem solving company, and we really try to always put our clients' needs first. Not everyone's in construction and they still ask us like, hey, can you guys do our window washing? Can you do, any exterior cleaning for our projects? So I'm excited that we're able to kind of branch out a little bit, but it's been, 3 years of 100% dedicated for, specialized construction cleaning and only working with GCs.
How many employees do you currently have?
So it's gone down right now because, like I had mentioned, we had closed down most of our 6 states. So now those are franchised out, right?
Okay.
So they're not our direct employees. But, we still have Phoenix, which is our corporate, but I still am managing it with my co-founders and my partners. And so on staff right now, we have about, I want to say 60 or 70 cleaners,
Okay.
right? Always here in Phoenix. But, before we had in the hundreds somewhere, because we had 6 states. So it's kind of nice though to be able to franchise, because I like being able to focus on corporate and then helping people become their best selves, right? So I actually am enjoying this transition a little bit.
So that's kind of where I was going with that, with hundreds and hundreds of employees stretched across 6 states. How in the heck do you manage to maintain culture, let alone operational control? But how do you maintain culture when you obviously can't be in all 6 states at any given time?
So we just partnered with people. Honestly, it's because of the people we partner with. You always partner with people who have the same ethical values that you do, people who care, people who want to be a partner as well, right? Like, we all want to make money. Like, don't get me wrong, I've been in a place in my life where I had no money at all. And so I love money, but money doesn't drive me. I know money will come as I continue to kick ass in life and build my empire. But you have to find other people to partner with who have essentially the same mindset, right? Like, their integrity and their work ethic drive first. And then they know that they're going to make money in the back end, and good money too. So that has been really a great position for us to be able to keep that company culture, and also, our clients really happy and driving the performance for people to continue to want to work with us.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see it. You can see the culture of the company come through in your social media and the company's social media, and that's what kind of drove me to ask that, because it's no easy task, right? We focus in southeastern Michigan, and just keeping the culture with all of our teams at the level we want is a lot of work. So doing it, spread out across that many different geographic areas, it's got to be a tough road.
Yeah, it definitely can be. And then we've had moments where we've partnered with the wrong people and we're like, bad, mayday, back out. Okay, we're done. We've moved on past, you've got to find other people. But for the most part, like, that's the blessing about, my partner. He has been in janitorial for 17 plus years. And so, we all are picking from the same labor pool. We are, but it's a matter of what do they want to do, what satisfies them. So a lot of times they'll stay with us, we pay higher rates. Our hours are much more desired because we work essentially during the day on all janitorials, typically night cleaning at ridiculous hours. And so, he's just had like a really good pocket of, connections, and he's been able to know like who we should partner with, and then, who we shouldn't, so to speak, and that type of stuff. So that's been a huge blessing on that end to have that.
So on that, for some of the growth that you went through in really the early days, what would you attribute, that growth to, and, getting all these jobs and then expanding out? And we can go into like the decision to expand to multiple states, but kind of walk us through like that initial ramp up period and, getting those jobs and what you were doing as you got everything off the ground.
Yeah. So, knowing that we had created a business, a type of service that was really highly needed, it was really now a matter of how do we market it? Because, when you're working with janitorial or maid services, you see that they all brand themselves, or you kind of get the same feel from majority of that industry. And so I already had an idea that I really wanted to set ourselves apart, like completely into a completely separate category, because I wanted to start becoming that person that I'm not the last person you think about, right? Like, let's think about CPR. I know that we got to get them ASAP, because let's work on how we can use their specialized skills throughout the project and make our lives a lot easier. So, initially it was really just B2B, right? Like, because it was right before the pandemic happened, and I was really pushing our brand. So like for me, my vision as somebody who, does this for a living with creating a brand, it's like I am selling a brand and I just so happen to do construction cleaning, right? Because my operations is going to do exactly what I'm just telling you, right? So I need to get you to be as in love with this brand as I am. So that's really like my approach on how I do that. And so I started initially doing that and getting people really excited about it. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, oh my gosh, like what the heck do I do? I was not social media savvy at all. I had my Instagram that I post about my children. That was it. Like there was just no way. I'm like, I don't even know. But I always used LinkedIn as a way to connect. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to kind of lean into LinkedIn right now and start sharing our brand, our business, the way that I would through, but through social media. And as we started creating content and showing our brand and our family, right, the CPR family, I noticed that people were really becoming engaged and saying like, wow, you guys I would never think that you're a construction cleaning company. Like, I would never think that you're a cleaning company in general, let alone construction cleaning. And, I was like, okay, I've got to think even further outside the box, because that was kind of like, it was doing its thing, but it wasn't growing it fast enough. And so then that's kind of when I started putting myself out there. And I would say probably like mid 2020, I started really creating content that was just really sharing more about my personal journey as an entrepreneur and how I started and how everyone's seeing that CPR is kind of blowing up. But it's taken me, at that point, it would have been, 10 years, right? Like it took me about 8 to 10 years to get to a point where I had experienced failure after failure after failure. after failure, right? Right before I started CPR, I was like on the brink of losing my house. I lost my car. I had no money. I was living like every time I was like, I have $15 in my account. Okay, I get paid in 2 days. And it was really a scary time, but I still believed enough in what I was trying to create that even when I had $15, I was 2 months into building CPR. Like, that's really scary. And I don't know why I was crazy to do that, because I have 4 kids, but still I did it. I did it anyways. And so I thought, you know what, like, we're in this pandemic and everyone's struggling, and, it's a scary, scary time. And I thought that maybe sharing my story would help give people hope and remember that even through the most awful times of our life, even feeling when you have $16 in your bank account and you have 6 people to feed, you're going to make it through. You just have to have faith. And here's some steps on how to do that. And so when I started sharing all these things, it created my brand, but then I was able to share more about CPR. And the more my brand grew, the more CPR grew, and so on and so forth. And like I said about, operations did exactly what I said they would do. And that's what continued, people being like, hey, we got to get CPR on here. You guys are on every single contract. Once you get in, you're in, right? We're in with right now the largest growing, I don't know if I can say their name, I don't want to get in trouble, but they are literally the largest growing general contractor in the US, and they're like blowing up. They basically came into Arizona and like plowed everyone out of the way, are getting into every single vertical, and they put us on every single contract that they have. And that's really, a testament to, yes, I helped get that foot in the door. Yes, I helped build those relationships, but I couldn't have done that without my amazing team doing what they do, right? So, that's the full circle effect. As the brand and marketing sales, you're not going to you'll have initial success, but if it's not a full circle within your company, you're going to be essentially a one-hit wonder until you fizzle out,
Yeah, absolutely. If you can't deliver, then no one will call you back. And
yeah,
and I can speak to the, putting someone like you and your company on our team. That's what we do. That's how we thrive in our little niche of the industry here. Is we partner with fantastic teammates and fantastic specialty contractors. And once you're in the door, so to speak, we don't want to let you go. We don't want to let any of our trades go work for anyone else if we could do that. But and we know this, it's the same thing with us. If I'm out there, selling the dream and running my mouth in sales presentations, if my team's not behind me, backing me up, it's a short-lived adventure that we're all going to be on. So I totally get it. In terms of your social media, it was during the pandemic, right at the beginning, that I really started noticing what you were doing. And all of a sudden you were showing pictures, the company was showing, pictures of your cleaning crews, decked out in their bio suits, sanitizing things. And it was like, wow, that's unique, right? No one was showing that side of our industry. And then obviously it kind of spun into your own brand. And so I think that's probably a good segue. Let's talk a bit about Unstoppable Media and Unstoppable in general. What is that, and what can you tell us about it?
So that was, very unexpected opportunity that came into my lap because of growing. My whole intention was, all I cared about was growing CPR. So I was like, how do I do this? And, with that, it did come with now having my own personal brand where people, are frequently reaching out and wanting to know more on, how to grow a business successfully, how to overcome, limiting beliefs, how to overcome circumstances that they feel are currently defining them, how to overcome being a parent and still being able to thrive and be their best selves for themselves. But really the reality is when you're your best self as a parent, you're your best self as a parent for them. And and it just ended up kind of slowly, I've had this become like almost a slow evolution, because my priority had been CPR. And the more, it was not until like the end of 2021, so it was December, when I decided, okay, that's it. I keep getting asked, people, are you going to start a podcast? We want you to start it. And I was like, well, what do I name it? I have no idea. And I started kind of like brainstorming and kicking names around with people. Like I actually have, so I provide mentoring and consulting, right? Coaching opportunities, but I also have coaches and mentors, right? Like I invest in those to help me be my best self. And so I'm kicking this back and forth with my coach, and she came up, she's like, everything just keeps leading back to unstoppable. And as soon as she said it, I was like, that's it. And to understand branding, right, is you basically want to have something that's going to be the umbrella. And then it just has this trickle down effect of what you're going to build under your umbrella. And that then allowed me to dive into, because I had written a journal that is really, it's a business manifestation journal that allows people to follow steps that I do on a daily basis and do it and implement it themselves. I'm somebody who needs something simplistic, like very clear and quick, because my time is like this, but it has to be effective, right? Like you can't just do it and not have any effect, because then why the heck are you doing it? It makes no sense. So, it's been really exciting to see the brand evolutionize, and, being able to be on, different TV segments, sharing about the Unstoppable brand. And really, like, this is my spiel about it, is I really truly believe that anyone can become unstoppable. You have to believe in yourself, and your unstoppable power is really determined for yourself and what makes you happy. So if you're not doing the things in your life that you're passionate about because you are like, well, I don't have enough money, my kid, I got to focus on my kids, there's like just excuses, right? Constantly, you're not being the person you're supposed to be, right? And you can do these things in slow steps. You don't have to just like be like, okay, I have to sacrifice everything and jump in. It can be slow and easy. But if you find yourself to be more accountable, and that's where my journal comes into play, you're ultimately going to achieve your unstoppable power. For the podcast itself specifically, I really wanted to feature people's entrepreneurial stories, right, of being unstoppable, because if you are a listener, you're going to listen to the same, not the same story. Like everyone's story is totally different, and I have people from all different types of industries, but at the end of the day, they have used their business to do good. And that makes them very unstoppable, because all the things that they have been through in their life, they also want to give back. And that, it teaches you can have a business, but you can also do good at the same exact time. And it's such a beautiful way to bring your business and personal and combine it and have like ultimate happiness, so to speak. And it's honestly meant for everyone. So it's not just entrepreneurs. I like to say that because, sometimes I see on LinkedIn, like people so unhappy being in their careers. And, for me, I felt like I was meant to be an entrepreneur, and I won't get into it now, but it's my long history line of my family being entrepreneurs. But we got to have people who love their jobs, because if I didn't have my team, I wouldn't have a business. So how do we allow people who are in careers to feel like they're also unstoppable? And that's where, this also comes into play of everyone is meant to have an unstoppable life.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be happy with what you do. You know, you
Hmm.
need everybody on the team, right? From the visionary leader to the, person that puts things together to, I mean, you need people that just want to show up from 9 to 5 and go home at the end of the day and be done with it. You know, they don't want to think about work anymore. You need everybody on that team,
Hmm.
from the people that are kind of responsible, and show up
Hmm.
and contribute, and then the people that can't leave it at the office type of thing, right? And that's
Yeah.
most of us. Where you think about whatever it is, your career, your job, the companies you work for, all the time. You're looking to do more. You're looking to contribute. We need everybody. It's not just a single person to take the charge. Everybody's pretty much required to make that work,
Yeah.
from top to bottom. Everybody has their spot in it. And I think that gets often, lost. There's everybody's important to making that whatever it is, your product, your service, your company work. Everybody's needed, top to bottom. Otherwise there wouldn't be a job position for those
Yeah.
people.
Exactly. Exactly. There's a lot of teamwork involved in that. And sometimes, with some of the people that I coach, some of the, corporate businesses, if you have some employees that maybe are really just going in and are like, I'm just clocking in, clocking out, you know, if you have the opportunity to maybe do an exercise with them and say, like, what are your goals? Let's write them out. Because if that is then going to say, well, I want to be a business owner, then that is going to be the reason why they are having a hard time focusing, because they need to be doing what they want to do, right? And how do they get there? Let's write it out so they can visually see it. But really, ultimately, I would say that most people who have this feeling of being unhappy and dissatisfied, there's usually something that's in the component of, within maybe company culture, but also it could be something in their personal life, and maybe not like a relationship personal, right? Maybe they're not, they're like, oh man, I feel unhealthy, or oh man, I feel like I want to run a full marathon, but I don't think I can. And they beat themselves up over it. And there's so much lack or self-doubt going on in their minds. So it's like, as somebody who has a corporate and wants to have all healthy employees, if you can find that thing that makes them tick and help them feel empowered that they can run that full marathon and that they have the support, you're going to have happier employees and they're going to stick around for a really long time.
Yeah. I mean, example is the best way to do that. Telling somebody they can do it or showing them, those are two very, very different things.
Mm-hmm.
Example is really the only way to lead, right? That's
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to be the example for your people. With that, we're coming up on time. Corina, any last words that you want to share with our listeners before I wrap it up for us?
Oh gosh, I feel like that's on the spot. I don't even any last words of wisdom. Gosh, I feel like I said it all, but I always like to just remind people, you're not your circumstances, so don't let them define your future. You have the ability, you have the tools. If you need extra help, you can check out my content. You can reach out to me from my website, CorinaBurton.com. I I hate to think about, people and their struggles and them feeling like, I can't do something because of something. Give yourself an opportunity to actually fail it and know for certain maybe it's not cut out for you. And then at least you have that answer. But if you live a life of wondering, that's not for you. You need to know for surety what you are meant to do on this earth, because we have such a short time. So I leave everyone with that. How about that?
That's great. That's perfect. Couldn't have said it better. Corina, where can everybody find you? You said CorinaBurton.com.
Yeah. So I'm pretty like generic, right? Like I mentioned LinkedIn quite a bit. So you can find me there, Corina Burton. That's, my name there on LinkedIn. But I also use my Instagram as well. I do create actually kind of two different content just because it's two different platforms. That's Corina Burton as well. And then my Unstoppable podcast that's hosted by me, Corina Burton. That's how you can find me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. No, it was really, I'm glad that I was able to virtually meet you both. Thank you.
For sure.
Any last words, Matt, before I wrap us up?
No, that was a fun one. I'm glad we got to meet, glad we talked, and I would highly suggest people go give your podcast a listen. It's a great show. I listen to it once in a while. Follow your content. It's really good stuff.
Thank you.
Cool. Guys, today, I think the big takeaway is not only, in being unstoppable and going and doing things we talk about a lot here is, you got to take action. You got to try things. You got to communicate well with your team, with others. Put yourself out there, not only in social media, but making phone calls, to your teams. All of that really matters. Like Corina talked about, when you're the chosen contractor and partner on a lot of these job sites, that matters and goes a long way but it can be lost just as easily. I think we always forget that side of it, is that if you're able to come in and take away business from somebody else, you can lose it just as quickly. So you have to maintain that integrity, for everything that you do. If her team didn't execute, she wouldn't be on those job sites, and, vice versa. So at the end of the day, make sure that you follow up and do what you say you're going to do, be a person and team of integrity, and make things right, when they aren't, like we talked about here at the beginning for our roofer that did the right thing. Those things matter. They go a long way, and really help out a ton along the way. And if you're not doing it already, you should be generating content yourself to put out to educate people on what it is your company does, what you're great at, what job sites you're doing, lessons learned. And I think those are the things that people really glob onto, not just the finished picture of whatever building you're doing, but the lessons learned along the way. So make sure that you guys are putting out content and telling your stories. Like at the end of the day, that's going to matter more, to bring people into the trades, to make the trades cool again, and showing people, what really can be done within construction in all facets, for construction cleaning to general contracting to design. So guys, that's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Until next time, please go like, review, share, and we'll see you next week.